Hey everyone, it's Linnea for LDRS Creative, and I have a 5 cards, 1 kit video for you with the brand new Forget Me Not exclusive craft kit from LDRS Creative. So just like other craft kits that they've had in the past, these are limited edition, and once they're gone, they're gone. This is a fantastic value at $39.99. I'm going to walk you through everything in this craft kit. So let's start with the 4x6 stamp set. There are 3 stamps. 2 sentiments, and then this one larger stamp, but it has 3 different forget-me-not images on there. There's a 3-piece die set that coordinates, and you're going to see here how the one die is going to cut out that one stamp image, but it's going to cut it into 3 separate pieces, which is going to make creating cards very easy. And then there are also dies to cut out your sentiments, which I love not having to fussy cut a sentiment. I love having just that nice, neat die cut edge around it. Next up, there is a 4-piece layering stencil set. I love when LDRS has layering stencils to coordinate with their stamps. I am not an expert colorist, and so having layering stencils to color in my stamped images just makes my life so much easier. So there's a couple different stencils here, 2 for the flowers and 2 for the leaves, and so you're going to be able to add instant shading. You can, however, color in these forget-me-nots with your favorite coloring medium, with pencils, markers, or watercolors, because they are just outline images, so you can color them with the stencils or with your favorite coloring medium. It's totally up to you. So there's everything in the craft kit, your stamp set, your dies, and your stencils. Let's go ahead and start making some cards. When I get a craft kit, I like to either stamp a bunch of images and color them if that's what's required, or in this case, stencil a bunch of images. That way I have a bunch of images ready to go for my cards. So I grabbed a bunch of my LDRS Creative hybrid inks and some blending brushes, and I'm just going to start blending. I grabbed some pink inks and I started with that first stencil and added a layer of light pink. Then I switched over to my second stencil and I'm going in with a layer of darker pink. Same thing for my greenery stencils. I'm going to have a light green and a dark green ink. These stencils are very easy to layer, and there are little etch markings in there so you can line them up easily. But using a stamping platform is still my favorite method for using layering stencils, because then I don't even have to worry about lining anything up. I just tape my cardstock into my stamp positioning tool and pop the stencils into that bottom left-hand corner. I blended a whole rainbow of forget-me-nots, and you can use that stamp to stamp over the forget-me-nots and add a black outline, but I created a bunch without the black outline, and later on in this video you'll see me go back and create some more of these florals with the black outline. But for now, I just did a bunch without that outline. Really easy. You can see here how easy it is to line up that die. It's one single die, and it's going to cut out all 3 florals all at once. Alright, so now that I have a lot of those images done, let's dive into creating my first card. I decided to start simple, and I just chose some of the forget-me-not images that I have stenciled, and I chose
add these on
2 main colors, the pink and the yellow,
go easy
and then 2 coordinating colors. I have a
something that was
blue
easily
in the
mailable,
bottom right
and
hand,
I'm just going
and
to
then
add
a
some
liquid
orange one
adhesive
up in the top
behind
there.
my florals and adhere them flat onto my card in that top right hand corner and the bottom left hand corner. Once I have that adhesive on there, I would just turn over my card and trim off any of those floral images that are hanging off my card. I love having elements that are kind of hanging off. I think it just looks really nice to the eye. Once I have my florals in there, I'm going to pick out a sentiment, and then I'll bring in my stamping platform, and I'm going to be stamping the sentiment with Raven Hybrid ink. I really love the way the black sentiment kind of pops off the page against these pretty florals. So there's my first card. Quick and easy to start off with, and this next one we're going to move into is probably my favorite, and it took a little bit of time, but I love the way it turned out in the end. I wanted to have a black background and have these forget-me-not images really pop off the page. So I cut a piece of cardstock to A2 size, and I'm just going to mess around with these floral images and bring in the large cluster, the medium, and the small, and just fill up this whole background with a rainbow of forget-me-nots. And I should mention, I don't always stick to traditional colored florals. I'm not even sure if there are pink and yellow forget-me-nots. I think that they are blue, but I am not sure about that. Botany was never my strong suit. So I just like to create florals in whatever color my heart is wanting on that particular day. So here I just grabbed a piece of sticky cling from my kitchen, and I laid that over top of my images so that I could pick them all up at once. You could do this with masking tape too. Once I took the time to arrange those floral images, I didn't want to have to fuss with bumping them and knocking them out of place, so I like to use that cling film and pick them up all at once. Thought my background needed a little something extra, so I spattered on some white watercolor, and then I added liquid adhesive to all of those flowers, and I'm going to pick them up all at once with that cling and then press them onto my card background. I'll very easily remove that cling, making sure that my florals are adhered down, and now I have this gorgeous background. Same thing as in the first card, I'm going to grab my scissors and trim off anything that's hanging off the edge. All that I have to do now is to add a sentiment, and I'm just going to add a simple sentiment right in the center of my card. I wanted it to have some dimension, but I didn't want to fuss around with foam tape, especially since the T and the rest of the lettering is very skinny. I didn't want to have to fuss with all of that. So I cut my sentiment die stamped with Raven ink and cut that out. And then I also cut 5 additional heavyweight white cardstock die cuts. And I'm just going to use my liquid adhesive to stack these together and create a dimensional sentiment. And I don't have to fuss with any tiny strips of foam tape. This takes just a little bit of time, definitely quicker than trying to cut foam tape, and you can't even tell from the edge that you can't see the foam tape sticking out or anything. Okay, so here's where I was going to tell you that you can use the Forget-Me-Not outline stamp over top of your stenciling. Completely optional. The first 2 cards, I didn't use this outline, but this one I wanted to have that definition. So I've already used my 4 layering stencils. Then I just grabbed the stamp, easily positioned it over top, and then I used that die to cut out those pieces. I grabbed some cover plate dies from LDRS Creative from my stash, and I'm going to stack these together and create a simple background. When I'm creating with the exclusive craft kits, I usually like to stick to the elements of the kit so you can see how versatile they are, but sometimes I do bring in some extra elements from my stash just so you can see how you can combine them with LDRS products that you may already have in your stash. So I used all 3 of those Forget-Me-Not pieces that I stenciled and then stamped over. The big one, the medium, and the small one. I arranged them the way I wanted them to be, and then I'm using some liquid adhesive to stick them all together so that they are one die cut piece. It just makes it easier for me to handle and kind of arrange on my card. Then I'm going to grab some foam tape, pop up my my florals, and put this sentiment right kind of off to the left hand side. And that's going to finish off card number 3. So far, I am loving the simplicity of these Forget-Me-Nots. Let's go on to card number 4. I wanted to show you another way to use that stamp set. So I'm going to use that large stamp. Remember, it stamps 3 floral clusters, and I'm going to use that to stamp my background. I have a sticky grid set up here in my stamping platform, and I'm going to use Raven Hybrid ink just to stamp my Forget-Me-Nots all over my background. And all I'll do is just clean off my stamp, reposition it, and keep on stamping until I have my whole background filled up. I like to do this a lot with stamps just to kind of bring everything together and make it look like a cohesive pattern paper. And I wanted to show you that you can do it even with a stamp that has multiple floral clusters. It looks just like a background stamp, and I love the way this turned out. I wanted to have just a simple floral cluster in the middle, so I'm going to mess around there a little bit. I do most of that off camera because even the simple cards take me a long time to figure out placement. So I do that off camera. I'm just going to stamp a sentiment here, and I'm going to grab some LDRS Creative Hybrid ink, stamp this down, and then use the coordinating dies to cut out this sentiment. This card is a little bit different because in the end, I decided that I really didn't want to cover up that background. I had enough of the flowers in the background that if I added another one on top, it was kind of clashing a little bit. So I decided to just go with this simple sentiment. I'm again using that stacking technique where I have cut 5 extra die cut pieces, stacked them behind my sentiment, so I have a total of 6 pieces of cardstock. I'm going to adhere that sentiment right in the center of my card, and then I will grab some pink gems or pearls, some pink pearls, and just kind of scatter them around my sentiment. I love the way this one turned out, and it really is quite simple. It's a gorgeous black and white background with a pop of color. Alright, I'm going to bring in those cover plates again, and this time I'll use the one that I didn't use on my other card. And this is the last card, and also the most intricate and, dare I say, difficult, but it's really not that difficult. I'll walk you right through this. I cut this from some light blue cardstock, and I'm just going to use my fingernails to pop out all those little pieces. Now here's a trick. I have used this die a lot, and the more you use a die, the die cut pieces kind of get stuck in the die, and I don't want to sit there with my piercing tool and just poke all those guys out, so I just drop the die onto my work surface and those pieces pop out. That's just a little tip for you. I went ahead and I glued that cover plate die onto my card base, and I just have a standard card base, so it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. Now hold your breath because I'm going to chop this up. I cut off, I would say maybe about 1 1/4 inches off the bottom. I didn't measure, honestly I eyeballed so that it would line up with the cover plate die. I didn't want it to create a really harsh line, so I kind of just cut out a center portion, and then I cut out another panel which is probably maybe 1 inch. Again, totally eyeballing this. It doesn't need to be exact. I just wanted to cut out a portion of just the front of my card base. If you noticed there when I was cutting my card apart, I had opened up my card base because I only want to cut out a portion of the front of the card. I chose the orange forget-me-not because I thought that would look really nice against the blue background, and I am now stacking together 4 or 5 heavy white dies of this same floral cluster. I wanted to create a sturdy structure. And then I also did 3 separate. So I have the main piece with 5 pieces together and then another 3 on the right there. I am going to use this floral cluster as a sort of bridge to connect my card together, and that's going to create a little peekaboo element. So I started by adding some liquid adhesive just to the top of that forget-me-not. And I adhered that to the top of my card, and then I lined up that piece that I took off, and I just adhered a little bit of liquid adhesive onto that forget-me-not on the bottom of that so that it would attach to the bottom piece. And then those remaining 2 die cuts, I'm adhering to the inside. And that does 2 things. Not only does it create a more stable element, but it also kind of covers up the inside of my card and makes it pretty. I stamped a sentiment strip because I didn't like the way those large sentiments were looking. I think it was taking up too much space. So I stamped a simple sentiment strip, and now I'm just going to lay that across my card. And again, I took 4 of those sentiment strips and I adhered them together so that it would be a sturdy sentiment strip, so that this whole card, even with that cutout panel, is very sturdy. Alright, let's take a look at all 5 of the cards that I made today. As you're watching, I would love to know which one is your favorite, so leave me a comment and let me know which one. I think number 2 is my favorite. I just love that black background. As I'm showing you my cards, I do want to remind you that the Forget Me Not craft kit is exclusive to LDRScreative.com, which means that you are only going to find it on the LDRS Creative website, and so I will leave a link to this kit below in my video description. In addition, it is limited edition, so once it's gone, and trust me, you want to grab this kit. It's fabulously priced, and you can make so many creative projects with this kit. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I'll see you again soon. Bye!